So thanks for everyone for coming today. Excited to have this different kind of meeting of our social science subcommittee where it's really focused just on getting people connected to one another with interests in social science research and the applications of that research to different environmental challenges, particularly in Tampa Bay, but also applicable to areas throughout Florida and maybe even elsewhere. So today is really just an opportunity for folks to make connections with one another, for those that are social scientists, to identify, practitioners, project managers, planners, educators, volunteer coordinators, all sorts of people that are working on the ground to sort of connect with them and hopefully insert their research into practice, but also giving non-social scientists an opportunity to hear about social science research that's going on across the area that they might be able to incorporate into their work. So today, depending upon how many people we have show up, there may be some flexibility to this, but basically, I'll just go through a general overview of the activities that we'll be doing today and some housekeeping rules for this kind of virtual networking event. And then we will go around the room and give some introductions from everyone. So the majority of people that registered for this event said that they really wanted to get out of this, new connections with social scientists or to hear about research that's going on in the area. So this will be an opportunity for everybody to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about them and the work that they do, so that we can get a better idea of who the folks are in the room and the stuff that they have going on. We'll also talk about briefly the new Tampa Bay Community Survey results that were just published this week. We did have about 1/5 of the registries said that they were interested in using this data in their current work or their future work. So I'll highlight some of those key results that we found, as well as research and practical opportunities that can come from that. And then we'll spend probably 45 minutes, maybe a bit longer, depending on how many people we have, in sort of talking about some different themes and different topics within social science that people are particularly interested in. So, based off of the registration that folks filled out, here are the most popular topics that people are interested in. So, you can see that a majority of people are really interested in aspects of environmental justice and social equity. A lot of people are also interested in political science, environmental policy. A few categories that I've combined here: education, marketing, and communications was also quite popular. And then we have more niche topics here. So things like anthropology, urban or landscape planning or design, and human geography. That's about a fourth to a third of folks. And then also people interested in things like psychology, sociology, economics, some of those things. And so, depending on how many people we have, we can have these 5 different breakout rooms. If we have fewer people, we can maybe combine them, or maybe not even need to go into different breakout rooms, but we'll be able to just sort of collectively as a group discuss all of these things and our interests and opportunities from them. But so that'll give us an opportunity to really start exploring all of these different topics further and look for opportunities to collaborate and work together. And then at the end, we'll kind of come back and do a recap and reflection. I'll open up the floor to people to sort of share their experiences here, any things that are still kind of outstanding, any opportunities that they still are really looking for, or things that they have to offer folks. So kind of this last kind of roundup of, interests and, making connections. And then we'll close and I'll give out a little exit survey for folks that did attend. So just some general housekeeping rules. So this is, a virtual sort of networking experience. So this is a bit new to a lot of folks that haven't done any sort of virtual networking before. And we try to keep it as close as possible to a normal in-person working event insofar as we can. So some things to consider here. Unless you're talking, please make sure that you are muted in case there's any background noise or things that come up, but we don't want to sort of interrupt the people who are speaking. If you can, please turn on your video. We would like to be able to make connections today. And so having that face-to-face, even if it's in a little window, having that face-to-face connection with folks, being able to see people responding to you, to be able to look at people while you're talking to them will just help people make better connections and get to know one another better. So if you're able to, please turn your video on today. And you can use this chat function down at the bottom to connect with others. You can send chats to everyone in the meeting, or you can also send direct messages to individual people. If you would like to respond to maybe a question that was posed, or you want to offer up some ideas or follow-up comments, try to use the hand raise feature so that we can make sure that people are heard and that we make space so that everybody can say something if they have something to say. If we do go into those breakout rooms, there is that little breakout room button there. That's where you'll be able to join breakout rooms that you're interested in, and you'll be able to switch between rooms if you would like as well. And just a note that we are recording, but only this main room is recording. So if you do go into the breakout rooms, those individual rooms will not have a recording associated with them. So if you are in one of those breakout rooms, just make sure you take good notes or get people's information because that won't be available in the recording after this meeting. And so to help us better understand who is in the room here, here's some uh, sort of instructions for renaming yourself in the meeting. So if you go down to this little button here at the bottom of your screen that says participants, it'll open up all of the participants in this little window here. And then you can click the little three dots next to your name and select rename. And so to help us identify where the social scientists are versus the novices in the group, we're asking that you rename yourself to include your first and last name. And in parentheses, if you consider yourself a social scientist, write social scientist next to your name. If you have some experience working in social science or working with social scientists, you can type enthusiast to let folks know that you have experience here. But if you have little to no experience in social science, add novice to the end of your name so that we can get to know, what people's familiarity are, so that when we're having conversations with folks, we know kind of what to expect and what level of experience they have in the topics that we're talking about. Other things to consider, in a normal networking environment, you've got business cards, you've got ways to exchange information. So in this virtual context, if you are comfortable, please feel free to share your email address in the chat after you introduce yourself. So basically exchanging your business card, your virtual business card to everyone in the room. If you're not comfortable sending out your email to the entire group in the chat, you can also send your email directly in a message to a particular person. So let's say, oh, I really am interested in what Carly is doing. So I'm going to send Carly a message and just be like, hey, Carly, I'm super interested in what you do. Here's my email. Would love to follow up. Can I have yours as well? If you do, if you would like to get somebody's email, feel free to just ask them. I know we had a lot of students, undergraduate and graduate students that registered for this event, and so a lot of them may feel uncomfortable, approaching experts or people that they're interested in. So always feel free to just send someone a message and ask for their email. Hopefully, no one in this group is going to be vicious or threatening or anything like that, and we'll be happy to share their email for people that are interested in getting in touch with them or connecting afterwards. Make space for everyone here. So this is a time for building connections for everyone. So we would like to make sure that everybody is able to get something out of this, or if they've come here with specific goals in mind, that hopefully they can have the time to be able to achieve those goals. So if you do find yourself having a really meaningful conversation between you and another person, just, be cognizant of the time that you're taking to discuss publicly with everybody. And maybe at some point, say, okay, let's exchange contact information and we can continue this conversation outside of this so that others can start contributing more to those group discussions. So just be mindful of the time that you're taking. We definitely want you to have these rich conversations with folks. And if you have ideas, definitely it's great to be excited about them. But just recognize that other folks might also want to have this time to discuss things with other people in the group. All right, so with that said, we're going to do a round of introductions or in an activity that I call Pitch Please. So in 30 seconds or less, we've got what, 18 people here. So maybe I'll allow, closer to a minute for folks. Basically, just say your name, what it is that you do, so your position or your affiliation. Give a brief summary of the work that you do, the research that you do, or your areas of study or expertise. And also let us know, what are you looking for in this meeting? So maybe you're here because you need collaborators on a particular project. You're looking for case studies to connect your research to practice. Maybe you need experts in some particular field or topic for a project you have. Maybe you're here for, job opportunities or research opportunities. Or if you're just here to expand your network, meet new folks, and learn about what other folks are doing. That's great too. And then, is there anything that you can offer others? So maybe you have funding available for a particular project that you could offer to folks. Maybe you have scholarship or internship opportunities, either in your lab or with your group or organization. Or maybe you have data sets, tools, other sorts of resources that can be made available to folks. So I will go ahead and I'll get us started. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Blake Simmons. I'm an environmental social scientist here at the Tampa Bay Estuary Program. My work is focused on environmental decision making, so using tools from fields like social psychology, behavioral economics, political science, and ecology to better understand behavior and identify opportunities for pro-environmental behavior change. I'm always looking for new collaborators and partners for our research and monitoring priorities, particularly our social science themed priorities that we have. And we do have a lot of resources available. So whether that's social data from our new Tampa Bay Community Survey or to various research funding for research and behavior change projects. We also have grant programs like the Bay Mini Grant programs, which are small scale grants, as well as our Tampa Bay Environmental Research Restoration Fund, which funds larger projects. So I'm just going to go through to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak. I'm just kind of going to go through the list of participants that I see here in my screen. I think it's alphabetical. So the folks that have names starting at the end of the alphabet, you have a lucky break to think about your introduction. But I'll go ahead and start. We have an Anthony here in the room. Anthony, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I unfortunately don't have a camera, so I'll just do my best with my voice. I'm a scientist with water conservation at Hillsborough County. A lot of my role has me doing public outreach, so really anything within the excuse me, sorry about that. The really anything within the social sciences when it involves large groups of people, large populations, I think would be really applicable here, just because a lot of what we're trying to do is reduce water use on a multi-hundred thousand residential scale. So it seemed like a really good fit, this type of thing. That seems to be right in line with sociology and even to a certain degree what you do. And then also on when I'm not here, I am a part of a few international projects that involves natural resource science as well, and I'm interacting with the public in those capacities as well. So really, both sides of my life, I think I could take a lot from this little course that we're doing.
Great. Thanks, Anthony. And if you are willing, everyone, after you introduce yourself, if you'd like to add your email to the chat, so we can all sort of copy them and or take notes of folks that we might want to reach out to, that'd be great. Next on my list is Carly Jones.
Hi, I'm Carly Jones. I am the Science Communication Coordinator for the Tampa Bay Estuary Program. I do a lot of communicating to different stakeholder groups, whether that's policy members or the public. And I share an office with Blake, so I have learned a lot about social science since my time here. So I'm kind of looking to connect with people that might be doing things that are applicable to our work. Blake did mention a lot of the resources that we can offer as a group, but I also have resources like the newsletter if you have a project that you need to get the word out to people that may be interested in environmental type projects. Just I will put my email in the chat and you can let me know, and we are happy to broadcast those type of things.
Thanks, Carly. Krista, you're next.
Hey everybody, I'm Krista Court. I'm an associate professor in the Food and Resource Economics Department at the University of Florida, and I direct the Economic Impact Analysis program. So I'm an economist by training, one of the social sciences, and related to the work that the Tampa Bay Estuary Program does, we focus mostly on estimating socioeconomic impacts of things like changes in water quality. We've done a lot of work on harmful algal blooms. And my position is majority extension. So I also specialize in sort of translating social science for decision makers. So we do a lot of work to try to get our work communicated outside of the university and outside of academia, just as much as getting our academic research published. So happy to be here. I'm just learning what everybody is doing and looking out for collaborators on future ideas.
Thanks. And Christine Davies.
Hi, I'm Christine Davies. I'm with Pinellas County Environmental Management.
I think we lost you, Christine, if you're still there. All right, I think we've lost Christine. I'll send Christine a message and she can, maybe we'll try to get to Christine again at the end. We'll come back. If not, Christine can introduce herself in the chat. Next on my list is Jan.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jan May. I'm an associate professor in sociology at Florida Gulf Coast University. I'm an environmental sociologist by training. I do have a background in business as well. My work right now is on a little bit of a hiatus because I'm also serving as the director for the Office of Public Policy Events at FGCU. And for those of you at the universities in the state, you're familiar with House Bill 931. So I am responsible of implementing that. But I'm currently teaching a class that designed called Environment, Health, and Justice. And I'm definitely looking for possible service learning opportunities, maybe connections between universities. And down the road, I would love to get back in doing some more research, ideally looking at environmental justice, maybe disaster mitigation, things of that nature. So happy to be here, and I will put my email in the chat.
Thanks, Jan. Eric.
Am I the only Eric?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Vicic. I am a restoration project manager with NOAA Fisheries, working on Deepwater Horizon oil spill restoration projects around the Gulf of Mexico. So I'm a project manager. We have people that do the planning and the monitoring, and my job is just to get the work done when the money's approved and everything. So I try to, honestly, I hate to say it, but avoid social science. I just like getting projects done, working in habitats with salt marshes and oysters, not people. But as we all know, everything is intertwined and you can't avoid people, even if you work in the environment, if you want to say it like that. So anyway, two of my projects that are starting up, involve restoring marine mammals and sea turtles, but they're dependent on assessing humans' attitudes towards those resources so we know how best to restore them. And maybe we can have voluntary fishing practices implemented at piers that reduce interactions and other things. So before we implement a restoration action, we have to assess people's attitudes and do the social science out in the field. So I'm not going to be the one doing that, but I'm going to be managing a couple of those projects. And since that's not my expertise, I thought I could join here, meet some folks in Florida and Tampa Bay that are doing social science. We might be able to ping some ideas off of, in addition to leveraging our own internal NOAA social scientists that we have access to. And then another motivation for coming was I love all these subcommittee meetings that the estuary program puts on. I think they're all super helpful. But I have a mentee who's in college right now, Ruby, who's going to introduce herself in a minute. And she is looking at a career in sustainability. And I know that has a lot of social science interactions and components to it. So I thought she could come here, practice her networking, while she's in college, get to know some folks that are doing work in Tampa Bay, and possibly see, if there's a part of social science that touches on sustainability that she might be involved in her future career. As far as resources that we can share, NOAA is a big federal agency, and we always have lots of good funding opportunities. So, those are just something you have to be aware of and keep an eye on our websites for as they're advertised, as well as data sets. We're learning. We have tons of data sets that are collected by us or our partners that we have access to, usually in the fishing realm for the world that I live in. But, we might have some other data sets as well that we could help share if needed. So good to see you all. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric. Jamie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Rogers. I'm a PhD candidate in anthropology at USF. I'm a coastal archaeologist and historical ecologist. Most of my research is focused on oysters in Tampa Bay and kind of how they're changing over the last 2,000 years. I'm also interested in how shell middens and mounds kind of function ecologically in estuaries and how to best kind of integrate these cultural resources and natural resources in estuary management. I'm here today to learn more about what's going on in Tampa Bay, as well as just kind of strengthening my own skill set. A lot of my research is like quantitative and isotope based, so I'm just kind of hoping to kind of become a broader social scientist, learning more like qualitative skills and other ways to look at data.
Thanks, Jamie. Joe.
All right, sorry. Hey, my name's Joe Murphy. I work for the National Wildlife Federation. I work on our Gulf of Mexico program, and I'm going to keep saying Gulf of Mexico, but that's another story. But I work on our Gulf of Mexico program, and National Wildlife Federation is a national organization, but in Florida, we have several staff that focus on issues like forestry, resiliency, Everglades restoration. I focus on issues related to sea turtles and manatees, resiliency, and then also anything that has to do with coastal habitats. So the reason that I wanted to participate in the call today, there's really three things. First, we're part of the Manatee Awareness Coalition, and we work with Jessica Lewis. And we've had a lot of conversations about social science and about using social science. So I thought it'd be good if I had a better understanding of exactly what was involved and what was entailed in that. The second thing is we are currently offering an internship with the National Wildlife Federation. It's about 20 hours a week. It is paid, and it would run for basically about 3.5 months, working primarily on sea turtle and manatee issues, but using some social science from that Manatee Awareness Coalition as part of the implementation of some of our work. So if you know anybody who's interested, we would love to find someone in the Tampa Bay area. And then last but not least, we're ramping up a fair amount of work on resiliency issues and working with groups like the Estuary Program and the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. And a lot of that work is interwoven with social science techniques or practices. So again, it's an opportunity for me to learn more about it and to talk with people who do it on a regular basis and figure out how to best use it in the conservation advocacy work that I do. So that's me.
Great. Thanks so much, Joe. Chris Kaufman.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Kaufman. I'm here in St. Pete, NOAA's Restoration Center. So I work for the Southeast region. So Eric and I kind of sit in the same kind of home office with Restoration Center, but I do not work on the Deepwater Horizon. I actually focus on our community-based restoration program. That's where I assist folks locally in applying for our restoration grant opportunities. And so kind of where I've found intersection with social science is that a lot of the projects in the state of Florida can be very competitive for habitat restoration projects with recreational fisheries associated with them, benefits to recreational fish. So with the economically important recreational fisheries comes fishers. So I've found the opportunity to interact with several social scientists for monitoring and evaluation components. So doing surveys and studies on environmental impacts, economic impacts, and also surveys on people's use of habitat restoration. So just kind of scratching the surface and having the opportunity to interact with folks and looking for new opportunities or ideas.
Thanks, Chris. Lisa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Kripsky. I am a Regional Water Resources Extension faculty at the University of Florida and the Florida Sea Grant Program. Krista already sort of gave you a good description of what Extension does, but I work, primarily in the coastal water quality harmful algal bloom world. And I would say because we really try and influence behavior changes for the improvement of water quality and the reduction of impacts associated with harmful algal blooms, most of my work is done in collaboration with social scientists. So I am here looking to expand my network. And while I'm not sure I personally have anything I can offer, the Florida Sea Grant Program does have funding, annual calls for funding, the scholarship and fellowship opportunities, internship opportunities. So I could happy to be sort of a gateway to those opportunities for the group.
Thanks, Lisa. Maya.
I'm Maya Burke. I'm the Assistant Director of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program. My training is in both environmental science and political science. And I've spent most of my career working on environmental land use planning and sort of the science to policy pipeline. For this meeting today, I'm hoping to help people make connections so that they can, do sound environmental restoration work that's informed by social science. And I think my colleagues have shared a lot of the opportunities that the estuary program has to offer. But I also think that I personally can offer things like if you ever need a facilitator for a conflict or contentious issue in your community, I would be happy to consider helping you through those kinds of things or connect you to others who can. And then I also have a lot of ideas or places or observations where there's need or opportunities for social science research, but not a lot of capacity to do that work. But I would be happy to share some of those opportunities or thoughts with new researchers or students who are looking for project ideas.
Thanks, Maya. Mila.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mila Turner. I recently just joined the Pasco County Public Works Environmental Division as their Lake and Pond Program Coordinator. So it's, a brand new program in this county. So we're just kind of launching it off the ground. So part of the reason I'm here is just to kind of network and, see what other people are interested in and make some connections. Because I'm also new to Florida as well. So lots of new faces and new things. But also, most of the program focuses on, promoting change that's public driven. You have to want to do it in order to be part of the program in a way. And so social sciences are, it's super in tandem with the program we're trying to launch. So, just how to market and communicate in that way, but then also how to, record metrics in a social science framework and, put your brain kind of in that mindset, take it out of, the environmental mindset and look at it from a social science perspective and then see where those intersections are. So I'm just trying to explore my tools to be able to do that. And, anything other people have to say. As far as, things I can offer, this is a brand new program. And so we're looking to really get it off the ground. So if you have a pond or a lake and you need some work done on it, we would be happy to help you if you're in Pasco County. So we also, for the lake specifically, we partner with Lake Watch at University of Florida. So, if you're interested in just sampling your lake and getting that data back to, if you don't know how to contact them, we can put you in contact with them. So thanks. Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Mila. Rajani?
Hello, I'm Rajani Maharjan. I'm PhD student here at University of Florida under the Department of Interdisciplinary Ecology. And my focus is on nature and religion. I'm international student. I'm from Nepal. And my research interest is focused on use of traditional ecological knowledge to help mitigate the climate change impact. For now, I'm thinking of Nepal as my research study, but my supervisor was suggesting that I should look for option B also, because of travel issues. So I'm looking for any kind of research that I could, may pursue here in Florida itself. So basically, I have master's degree in environmental science. So I am interested in this water bodies research, and also my main research focus right now is on traditional ecological knowledge. I kind of feel like, traditional ecological knowledge are really important part to be considered in today's research. Yeah, I'm open to any kind of opportunities, and I'm looking forward to get connected. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Ruby.
Hi, I'm Ruby Mantel, and I'm a current undergraduate junior at Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, and I'm currently working alongside Eric in Eckerd's Career Mentor Program, and he's been kind of helping me, set myself up better for after I graduate, helping me network myself with people in the area, as well as kind of looking for future career opportunities as well as internship opportunities. My master is in environmental studies, but I am focusing on a minor in sustainability as well as a minor in psychology. So I feel like social science is kind of the perfect tie between all of them. And yeah, I'm just also happy to hear about kind of the current projects that are going on in the area. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ruby. Sarah.
Hi, my name's Sarah Sacco. I'm a senior environmental specialist with Hillsborough County. I help coordinate the county's Adopt a Pond program. So we work a lot with neighborhoods and HOAs, trying to navigate people's opinions and views on what a stormwater pond should look like, helping them improve the appearance of their pond as well as the function of their ponds. So it's a lot of talking to people in that way, in the social scientist aspect of things. I'm mainly looking here to just expand my network, learn to see what other counties are doing. I know programs like Adopt a Pond aren't super popular, so hoping that the more the information gets out there, maybe other counties can kind of start their own programs, and as well as anything we can offer. Not a whole lot with funding. Our work is mainly with, like I said, neighborhoods and residents and pond groups, and helping them navigate how to maintain their ponds long term. our program is only 3 years, but the whole goal is to have something that's long lasting for many years. So yes, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Sumer?
Yes, good morning. My name is Mohammed Sumari from Hillsborough County Environmental Services. I work on data collection and data analysis from lakes and streams in Hillsborough County and looking for impairment, the cause of impairment, and also how to mitigate. So right now I'm just looking for what is there and what new people have there that I can use. So thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll circle back. Christine, I wonder if we had some connectivity problems. I wonder if we might have you back now.
I am back. I am so sorry. I'm gonna leave my camera off to hopefully stay in this meeting. So I'm so sorry for the issues I was having before, but thank you for your patience with me. Again, I'm with Pinellas County. I'm in environmental management. I'm an environmental specialist in the monitoring and assessment section. So we monitor all of the surface water in and around the county. So we look at our marine systems and all of our freshwater systems through various programs. And I'm also the internship coordinator, volunteer and internship coordinator. So we do a lot of volunteer events and we take interns every semester. And I also work as an editor on our Facebook page for the Pinellas County Environmental News. So we have a lot of outreach opportunities if anybody has any information to share. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for allowing me to join.
Great, thanks, Christine. And last, we do have a mystery iPhone participant in the group. So if you are on an iPhone and you have not introduced yourself, if you would like to introduce yourself, please go ahead. Maybe not. All right, no worries. Well, mystery iPhone, you're welcome to contribute to the conversation. If you can't speak, feel free to add your information into the chat. So great, thanks everyone for coming again today and for introducing yourself. I haven't been checking the chat, but it looks like folks are contributing to it. So hopefully lots of emails. Again, if you met somebody or heard from somebody that you think has overlapping interests or could be really beneficial for a connection for you, please feel free to send them an email or send them a message here in the chat and help connect with them while you're here. So the first thing that I just wanted to talk about in general to kind of just set the stage here, we do have our Tampa Bay Community Survey. The report was just published this week on Tuesday. The report it's long, but it has a lot of different components to it. And so it has a detailed description of the methods and the distribution behind the survey, some of the objectives and goals that we had from it, as well as an overview of sort of the big picture results that we have from it. There's a lot that we can do with this data that we've collected, and so this report just gives, a very descriptive look at what it is that we're seeing in this data and outlines some recommendations for how it can be used. It also includes an appendix that has a copy of the survey. So if you would like to recreate the survey, or if you just want to know exactly how the questions were asked, how they were presented to folks, you can look at the survey and recreate it or better understand it from there. It does also have an appendix that is a data dictionary. So all of the data behind the survey is publicly available in our GitHub repository. And so if you download that data and you want to use it, you may see that like the field names or the names of the data sets have abbreviations, or maybe they're not clear what they mean. And so that data dictionary actually has the definitions for all the variables, that are in the data sets, what each data set is and how to use it, as well as R scripts. So if you want to replicate the results from the community survey report, or just be able to, download and manipulate the data as you want, there are also R scripts pre-made for you to be able to do that. So you can access that. We do also have a short 2-pager. I'm actually going to go through that little 2-pager today just to give an overview of the results that we have. But all of that's available on our website right now. So for those of you in the social science subcommittee, this will be familiar to you. I gave a presentation about this in a previous meeting, but for those that haven't had experience with it yet, I just wanted to give you an overview of what's in the community survey. So the reason why we developed this was we really wanted a long-term survey that we can use to monitor social and cultural changes in Tampa Bay over time. And the questions have all been designed to help us achieve a lot of our CCMP goals, our goals from our comprehensive conservation and management plan for Tampa Bay. And so it's designed to run every 2 years. And we get a sample size of at least 1,000 residents throughout the Tampa Bay watershed for each of them. And this year we launched back in August of 2024. And here's some of the things that it includes. It includes questions that gauge their knowledge of the state of the Bay. So it's things like their knowledge of recent water quality trends, things like nitrogen, stormwater, things that are contributing drivers to seagrass loss, as well as their knowledge of fertilizer best practices. We also have other questions that gauge their attitudes, beliefs, or experiences regarding the environment, their sense of environmental justice in their community, different psychometric components, so things like nature relatedness, place identity, soul nostalgia, hope pathways, even their mental health, well-being, and eco-anxiety. We also have a section regarding their community priorities. So we give them 16 total potential priorities related to the environment, social services, infrastructure, and the economy, and ask them to rank how important each of those different priorities are for their community so that we can better understand what it is that people want and the issues that they would like addressed in their community. And then we also wanted to know what it is that they do, some of their activities, different types of engagement activities with nature. So that can be active engagement, things like hiking, camping, bird watching, where nature is the focus, as well as passive nature engagement activities. So like exercising outdoors, picnics, cookouts, things where nature isn't the focus, but it's a good entry point to engagement with nature. Their social engagement, so their involvement with different groups, what kind of one dimension of social capital, as well as different environmental behaviors that they performed throughout the past 12 months. And so just to give you a glimpse into the type of data that is available with the community survey. So this is our 2-page summary here. You can kind of see a breakdown of the participants that we had. We did have a random sample of the public making up most of the data, but we do also have this in-network, what we call our in-network audience. And so these are residents that are already connected to the Tampa Bay Estuary Program in some form. So they heard about the survey directly through us or through our partners that shared the survey with them. So they're probably already more connected to the environment than the general public. So that's why we would distinguish those two groups of people. We do have representation from across the county, the majority of them coming from Hillsborough and Pinellas County, which is just has a larger share of our watershed boundary within them. But we also have several folks from Pasco, Polk, Manatee, and even a few people from that little clip of Sarasota County that is still within our watershed. And so here, just a general overview of some of the things that they do. The different audiences, you can see that there's differences in the level of engagement that they have with nature, particularly for active nature engagement activities. In general, some important things that we can find from that is what are the most popular activities from our residents. So we see that things like exercising outdoors, bird watching or wildlife viewing, gardening, visiting a beach, those sorts of things are really popular, and those might be really good entry points if we want to help increase our community's engagement with nature. These are probably good starting points for activities that they would be interested in joining. There is also an opportunity here. Almost a fourth of the public respondents said that they're not very satisfied with outdoor opportunities available to them. So that's an area where we can try to identify those communities spatially and the types of people that are unsatisfied with those outdoor opportunities and help create programs that are tailored to give them more opportunities to make them happier. We also have questions about their environmental behaviors. So I've just highlighted three behaviors of interest. One of them is the percent of people that have installed or maintain various green infrastructure projects. So a rain garden, a rain barrel, or a swale. We also have some key stormwater behaviors of interest. So we see that for the public, about a third of them say that they have blown grass clippings or leaves onto the street, which is not great for stormwater pollution. And then we also have over half of the public and almost half of our in-network audience saying that they applied fertilizer to their lawn or garden this past year. And in a follow-up question, we actually asked them, for those people that did use fertilizer that year, we found that almost a third of the public and 1/4 of our in-network audience report applying fertilizer during the summer months. And so for those familiar, the summer months are our rainy months, and so it's the most risky time to apply fertilizer when it comes to leaching from the yard into our stormwater drains and contributing to nutrient pollution in the bay. And the summer is also where a lot of fertilizer bans in our region occur. So that helps us gauge, people's behaviors for issues that are a big concern for us. We also asked them several questions about the state of the bay. In general, we found that the public is less knowledgeable about these issues than the in-network, but there's still a lot of room for improvement in both audiences. And so those are some good educational goals that we can set for the broader community. In particular, some key knowledge gaps. A lot of people don't know, particularly in the public, that nitrogen is the biggest contributor to poor water quality in our area. The most common answer was phosphorus. And although the majority of the public understood that stormwater runoff is the main source of nutrient pollution for their bay, it was still only 37%. So a lot of people also think industrial discharges as well as wastewater are the #1 source of nutrient pollution in our bay. So these are areas where we can focus on our educational efforts. Some good things out of that knowledge is that the majority of people do know that the summer is the riskiest time to apply fertilizer. So that's good. We can always, improve that. But also slightly concerning for these people that said that they applied fertilizer during the summer months, the majority of them answered this question correctly. So most of these folks do know that summer is the worst time to apply fertilizer. So there's some education or potential behavior change, things that we can work on here to try to understand what is it that is, leading to folks to fertilize when they know it's not the best time of year to do it. Other things, some community priorities. Here's kind of a snapshot of how the environmental issues, infrastructure, economic issues, social services kind of rank compared to these different audiences. Overall, there's some opportunities here for identifying overlapping priorities between different audiences. And so the data that we actually have, we include spatial data. So for about 60% of all of our participants, they did give us a reliable information for their nearest street intersection. So there's actual spatial data included in this for most of our participants, where you can then actually map their communities on the ground. And so you can even create like little maps of hot spots or cold spots to identify where particular priorities are present throughout the watershed. So that can be really useful for planning and decision making. Other sort of key things, their emotional connection to the bay, as well as what they think in terms of the physical linkages between their community and the health of the bay. Some experiences of change. There are more than I've highlighted here, but I've just given two sort of climate change examples of rainfall patterns and average temperatures, people that have been negatively affected by them, and then their overall concern about climate change being a threat to their community. In general, most people feel safe in our communities, outdoor spaces, and believe the bay is a safe place to swim. While this number is low, so this is about 8% of the public and 2% of our in-network audience say that they generally feel unwelcome or discriminated against when engaging in outdoor activities. It's good that this number is relatively low, but I think that 8% is still a bit of a cause for concern. And so we want to think about how we can make people feel more welcome and included in these activities when they go outside. And then last, this section, various sort of psychometrics that, in some way or another, we think impact people's environmental behaviors. So we have things like place identity, their emotional or symbolic attachment to Tampa Bay, their nature relatedness, their subjective connection to nature, solastalgia, so that's the measure of emotional distress from experiences of environmental change. We have two measures of hope. So one kind of a self-efficacy based measure of hope, and one more about response efficacy of their actions. And then our environmental justice metrics here. And so this is a combination of distributive, procedural, and recognitional justice perceptions within the community. And then we also have questions about their mental health. So we have an overall indicator of their subjective well-being, as well as a measure of affective symptoms of anxiety related to the environmental crisis, or what we call eco-anxiety. And very interestingly, we find that moderate to severe symptoms of eco-anxiety are twice as prevalent among the public than they are the in-network audience. So this is just a summary of the results. There is a lot more information in here, a lot more data that you can explore further. But basically, after all of this, some of the key areas that we have identified that we would be really interested in exploring further and collaborating with others to help explore. Some research opportunities, really understanding the interactions between these different psychosocial constructs that we have. So the literature has not fully explored how all of these different related psychometrics kind of relate to one another, what influences what, and how it all influences environmental behaviors. So that's more of kind of like a theoretical avenue that we'd be really interested in exploring. We also want to better characterize this eco-anxiety. Eco-anxiety is a relatively new concept. It was kind of only introduced back in 2017. And so there's not much that we know about eco-anxiety, how it manifests, how different is it from normal generalized anxiety disorder, and those sorts of things. So there's a lot of opportunity here to better understand what is eco-anxiety and who is exhibiting symptoms of that potential disorder. The role of experience, better understanding, what we experience, the negative experiences that we have, and how that shapes our attitudes, our opinions, as well as our behavior. And then, of course, ultimately, we're really interested in what is it that predicts people's environmental behaviors. So them, blowing grass clippings in the leaves, them participating in restoration activities, those sorts of things. We'd really love more research that can help us understand what are the levers that are really the most important to tug at for creating positive pro-environmental behavior change. There's also a lot of practical opportunities here. So we've identified some really key knowledge gaps. And so coming up with strategies to help fill those knowledge gaps, particularly about nitrogen and stormwater, will be really important. And so that's a really good opportunity for education, communications, and marketing folks. What is not on the report summary sheet that I just showed you, but we did ask folks what their primary sources of information about the state of the Bay were, and we found some very key differences between the public and the in-network audience. Specifically, the public really relies on television to get their knowledge about environmental issues in the state of the Bay. So if we can harness those key communication channels, those might be really good for improving people's education and awareness of these issues, and hopefully ultimately their behaviors. There's opportunities here to build a better connection to nature. We see that a lot of folks are not satisfied with the opportunities that are available to them, but they still want to be connected to nature. So we can look at different avenues for helping to bring those opportunities to them to help build their connection to nature, which then hopefully will flow into their environmental behaviors. We can utilize the diversity of priorities that people have for their communities to identify overlaps as well as complementary solutions to try to, feed two birds with one stone, kind of a thing. So that'll be really important for going forward. And then, of course, at the end, all of this is really important to identify target audiences for education campaigns, behavior change campaigns, and just anyone else. We can use this data, the demographic data, socioeconomic data, as well as behavioral data, all that kind of stuff to better understand who it is that we want to sort of influence or to change their behaviors. So all of that said, now we are going to move into our session where we originally were going to have breakout rooms. I'm thinking, how many people do we have? We have 16 people here. I'm wondering if maybe what we might do is just instead of going into different breakout rooms where they may only have a couple, 2 to 3 people in some of the rooms, I think maybe let's have this remain kind of an open room and we can just go through each of these topics. And so everybody who is interested in a particular topic can get an opportunity to discuss different things. So you can pretty much then just ignore these instructions that we have here. We'll be doing this for the next 45 minutes or so, and we'll go through each one of these different topics here. And I'll put this little discussion guide up here. So, feel free to talk about whatever you would like or to share whatever you would like, but just some things to kind of spur discussions about each of these topics. So why are you interested in this topic? If you are interested in the topic, do you have any research or existing work that you're doing right now or that you have done in the past? Is there any type of work in this topic that you would like to do in the future or you would like help for? Do you have any resources to offer others on this topic, such as data, funding, or any other sort of tools? Are you in need of expertise, resources, or funding around this topic? And what opportunities might be available to collaborate on shared interests in this topic? So with that, I think environmental justice and social equity was one of the most popular topics for people. So I think we'll go ahead and start with that. And I'm going to open it up to the group. If there's anybody that is really passionate about environmental justice and social equity, or really has things that they need or projects that they're planning on, please feel free to hop off of mute and share your interests and your needs with the group. I'm monitoring the chat. So is there anyone here who has a particular interest in environmental justice and social equity? If not, we can also move to a different. Yep, go ahead.
Hi, it's Christine. I definitely have interest in it. We have a very urbanized county, and so I'm very interested as to like what the needs are as far as environmental justice and social equity go. I'm sure that there are needs. I just don't I'm not versed in it. So does anybody have any experience in this area that where there are needs?
So one framework you can use is, and I will put a link to it in the chat, but it's called walking audits. And so you go through a community and basically assess the state of the streets, the sidewalks, which groups have, less equal access to parks, to shaded areas. Are the cracks in the sidewalk for disabled people, for a lot of elderly people? Is the impact of disasters impacting mostly racially marginalized communities, that sort of thing. And so it's a relatively simple tool that you can sort of implement. So that's my first thought always when it comes to environmental justice projects. So I will put the link in the chat.
You know what I was going to add, and I will not claim any expertise on this, but I am very curious about this. I think that as conservation groups or community groups or government agencies or local governments talk about resiliency and talk about both recovering from past storms and preparing for current or future storms, that whole idea of environmental justice and social equity has got to be a key underpinning of that. And I'm not always sure that that's the case at the outset, but when you look at a lot of the areas that flooded that don't traditionally flood, like around USF and Tampa or Forest Hills, or areas up where I am in Dade City, Zephyr Hills, Ridge Manor, in a lot of cases, those are areas that are challenged in terms of economics and are definitely areas that are mixed racially. So I think that there's a concern on my part that as we're moving forward with all these plans and proposals and projects, that if we're not infusing the idea that they have to be just, we potentially have a situation where we're moving people from more affluent, very flood-prone areas into areas where people can't compete economically for that landscape. Or in the area that I am, in the upper part of the Tampa Bay region, a lot of new high-end development being pressed against areas that have been here for a long time that aren't as affluent, and them sometimes not receiving the full benefit of the stormwater protection or not having the offsets for the impact of that new development. So that's just a thought I wanted to put out there. I'm not really sure what to do with that, but it's something that I'm very curious about and trying to learn more about.
Did go ahead and put a link in the chat to some resources that Blake has pulled together that give sort of a course mapping overview of different kinds of underestimated communities and then the types of environmental burdens that they are disproportionately exposed to. I think part of the utility of that tool is it can give you a good idea for a starting place, but I wouldn't suggest that you just like use that tool and say like, oh, this community is, this group and this is the thing that they're most concerned about. But it gives you kind of like an idea of what risks they might be exposed to and places to start a conversation or ways to frame a walking tour or something like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I've just pulled up here. Hopefully everyone can see it, that page that Maya just shared. And so you can kind of go through and get an understanding of how we have sort of, the approach that we've taken. So like in terms of defining, what underserved communities are, some of the ways that we look at it. So we're looking at, thresholds met for several different types of things. And so that's looking at low income census tracts, areas of high unemployment, linguistic isolation, so areas where there's limited English speaking in the household, less areas with less than a less do not have a high school education, and percent that have a lower life expectancy. And so a lot of these come from EPA recommendations. It's very similar to their own EJ screen tool, their environmental justice screening tool. And so you can kind of see how we apply that. There is code available, so you can download the code and actually modify it if you want to change it. But basically, this allows you to kind of then zoom in to see areas that might be considered underserved. We also have a look by drainage basin. So if census tracts are maybe less relevant for sort of environmental planning efforts, you can also look at the Ybor City drainage basin, for example. It has a very high percentage of underserved census tracts in there, a few others in here, and you can explore in that way. And then we also have another section that looks at the different burdens. And so this data comes from I think it's called it's CGEST, Center for Economic Justice Screening Tools, something like that. And you can look at different burdens we consider. And so what do we have? We have things like agricultural loss expected from climate change, flood risk from climate change, lack of green space, air quality issues, traffic volume, wastewater discharge, a whole bunch of things. And you can actually zoom into these census tracts and hover over them and see, for this particular community, the burdens that they are facing. Again. And then, yeah, there's also a little tool here where you can look at different, if you're looking for like flood risk, wastewater discharge, these are areas that we have mapped out thus far that can kind of give you a glimpse into that. But certainly not the only way to investigate these types of things.
Blake, that's real cool. I didn't know estuary program had these tools or add-ons. It looks like some of them at least were based off the EPA EJ screen tool. Like what happens if that system were to go away because it's an EJ tool run by the federal government? Is this like linking to that, or if that goes away, do you still have the data? Like, do these screens go blank, or what happens if that tool disappears?
So, I mean, and that is a good question, but so as it is now, we do have this data, saved so that if something were to happen with EJ screen at all, we still have our own backup for it, and so it'll be static, at least. But the way that our code has currently worked, the code allows you to directly download from the actual EJ screen website. So that way, whenever they publish like the most updated version, a version 3 or 4, if you run this code, you'll always get the latest version from it. So in terms of the coding stuff, it'll probably make it impossible to do if that link no longer exists from the government, but we will always have at least our own copy of this sort of snapshot in time.
Okay, thanks.
Interested. I have a colleague at the University of South Florida who is just about to publish a EJ map looking at accessibility of green spaces and blue spaces, specifically in the context of living shorelines, and has developed a tool, a decision-making tool where if you're looking at putting in living shorelines for shoreline protection, adding in this element of equity and accessibility to green spaces and blue spaces for the health benefits, for the social benefits, and using things like the metrics discussed here, a lot from EJ Screen, to kind of follow this matrix of not just prioritizing the most obvious sites, or not just prioritizing sites where communities have the most resources and are the loudest about advocating for themselves for putting in a living shoreline. That's only for Pinellas County, but if that's something you're interested in, I'll put my email in the chat and it should be published really soon. But she said she'd be happy to share that.
Yeah, thanks, Rory. And I think, Rory, you maybe came in a little late. Do you want to just give us an introduction to yourself and who you are?
Yeah, I did come in late. Sorry about that. Had a meeting. My name's Rory McKenna. I just graduated with my master's degree from USF. I am technically an environmental anthropologist, but environmental social science is my niche. My research primarily looks at environmental change, anthropogenic change. And in the context, I partner with a lot of engineers and biologists to look at integrating and developing living shorelines for shoreline protection and community protection. So a lot of that work happened in Belize, in Placencia, Belize, but do a little bit here in St. Pete as well, and Tampa. I've also been doing some work with the city of Tampa on their tree planting initiative, which has been interesting. So that's a little bit of what I do.
Great. Thanks, Rory. Thanks for joining with us. Any other thoughts regarding environmental justice, social equity? Our community survey does include basically 3 metrics. Well, it technically includes 4, 3 of which are combined into one metric. But basically, it captures distributive equity and people's perceptions of distributive equity. So it's about, do they feel that their community faces more environmental issues than other communities? A measure of procedural equity. So their sense that people like them have a say or their voices are heard in environmental decision-making processes, and then a measure of recognitional equity. And so it's their perceptions that the actions that are taken by their community leaders actually reflect their needs of the diverse voices within the community. So those are additional things from the community survey that can be in there. And so it's kind of a more subjective, personal perception of issues of equity or justice rather than sort of, the kind of EJ screen type of approach where it's very, sort of outward facing and, kind of more assigning potential, burdens and things like that to communities. But so that's also available. Any other thoughts? I wonder if Rajani, given your interest in traditional ecological knowledge and things like that, I know this isn't quite exactly the same, but I was wondering if, in your experience, how others have sort of addressed these issues of equity and especially, considering diverse voices in decision making, diverse knowledge, values, those sorts of things. I wonder if you had any comment or suggestions for folks that are interested in this?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I've studied and also experienced back home in Nepal. I too worked as a researcher for the development projects. So yeah, lots of issues do matter. Like, we have to look from all different perspectives, like different people, community, their culture, the place-based, knowledge, because whenever we are implementing any development projects or any changes are being done, different projects are being implemented, most of the time, the local participation does impact much more, like if a project is being implemented from outside and if the locals are not being actively involved from the very decision-making process, most of the project do not, become successful. So on that concept too, like I'm trying to see like how, traditional knowledge can also play in role because most of these, I don't know, in context of USA, but there are lots of knowledge, place-based knowledge, which does carry, like different knowledge that is so so important for that particular place, yeah, and also involvement of people, the locals, from the very beginning of the project, like in different decision making, like what should be done, what should not be in certain places, culture wise, right? So what is appropriate for that place or not. So I think there's a lot of this kind of involvement that need to be done, like especially in different development projects. That is what I've seen. Like lots of donor-funded projects do come in, and they would bring in different solutions, which then, like is not culturally appropriate. And then, when people do not have their say, it is being implemented, but then it won't be successful in long run. And also, recently I took a course on environmental justice, and all these kind of issues are being mentioned in that course too, like politically, right? How it get influenced. Like some of the decisions are done because of the political pressure, whether or not the locals agree to it. So yeah, I think those kind of things need to be considered. Yeah.
Definitely.
Can I ask a question here about on the topic of this considering diverse voices? How did you go about on the community survey trying to ensure that you were doing that? Because we have a lot of needs assessments we do or surveys that we do where some of our concern is just that we're getting the same people answering the surveys all the time, or we're the same people coming to our extension programs all the time, and we just aren't doing a good job of reaching new audiences. So I wonder if you all thought about that in the community survey, or how others are trying to make sure that they expand that.
Yeah, I'd love, yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so for the project that I was involved back home, like usually most of the people reach out to the organizations. So there were like 3 different layers of organization. One would be national level, another would be district level, and then there will be local organizations. And then one of the project that I was involved, what we did was we did a focus group discussion to the community itself. Like we went to the different places and conducted these for focus group discussions where the people in that area came out, and we kind of did the interaction program, and that was very effective. Like most of the people were like, oh, we were so happy to see you, because we thought like nobody even cared about what we thought. So it kind of felt like, yeah, sometimes, the communication do not reach to the actual people. The leaders kind of give their own thought, as they think that they know better than the people around there. So they are representing the voices, right? So I think going into the areas and conducting this kind of group discussions where everybody is actually participating is more effective than just having a meeting with the representative or the leaders of the community. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, for our community survey, um, basically, so we had our random sample of the public was collected from a social marketing company. And so it's kind of just their database. Because we sort of had this tight restriction on the watershed level area, we thought it might be too difficult to get 1,000 people if we had too many requirements, quotas or things like that for different characteristics. So it was really just the main criteria was 18 and older and live in the watershed. So for that, we do see we actually saw in terms of we saw a relatively little racial or ethnic diversity in that sample, but we saw a lot of variation in socioeconomic diversity. So we actually got a relatively large percentage of like people making less than $25,000 a year, people that live in mobile homes, and things like that. So that was a relatively positive outcome from that. We did also complement our online efforts by mailing out, I think it was like 4,200 surveys in the mail explicitly to random addresses within our underserved communities. that we have identified in the watershed. And so, of course, someone affluent or someone, that is part of the majority can still live in those, and, they can then send it back. But that was our kind of way of trying to realize that a lot of these underserved communities might have less internet access or just less likely to be in one of these social marketing, pools that already exist. So to try to give them more of an equal opportunity to still, send their survey back to us for free, and have their voice be heard. But so that was kind of our approach, to try to increase the diversity of representation from the survey.
Thanks.
Add on in a lot of the interdisciplinary work that I've done, I've noticed like a hesitancy or a resistance outside of the social science team to want to hold off on doing community engagement until there's kind of like more of a plan in place. We know which direction we're moving. And we're always pushing back with that. Our team saying like getting the community involved from the very first day of planning is so important. Having your kind of key contacts, leaders, shakers and movers who are directing you to the groups of people, different groups of people who you want to be engaging. Even if all you know is that like you want to do an EJ project, you've heard that that's important generally, but you're not entirely sure what that looks like that's awesome. Talk to the community and let them tell you what they want and kind of like start parsing out what this project looks like together as a team. Let them ask questions and don't always know the answers, because the longer you wait, if you kind of go in with a plan already or even like an outline of a plan, often there's this hesitancy and this resistance and this pushback of being like, well, why didn't you come to us earlier? Like you're missing a big piece of the picture here. And also community engagement, it really does. It takes time. Building relationships, which is like the core of community engagement, takes time, and it's moved at the speed of trust, right? You have to build trust with folks and let them trust you. And so really pushing for getting boots on the ground, like day one, is the most important part. Like if people outside of the social science who want to do more of this in your work, like making time for it, making a plan for it from day one is just critical for a successful project.
So Rory, I completely agree with you and wish that the funding agencies knew that, right? and we're okay with putting a large portion of our budget towards community engagement sometimes, yeah. Not sometimes, all the time.
Just need to like figure out different vocabulary to make it seem like it's something else, but that's actually what we're doing.
Great. Well, before we head maybe to the next topic, I did also just want to share another resource that we have. So we have what we're kind of calling an equity decision support tool. Right? There we go. So let me put a copy of it in the chat. Where did the chat go? It just disappeared. Here we go. So, so I'm not showing you the live version, but we have this Shiny app that allows you to sort of go through this interactive kind of stepwise process to say sort of, let's say if you have a project or you have a project in mind, it just prompts you with some questions to help you start thinking about equity, how equity plays into different things. And so I won't go through all of these, but basically, it asks you questions about, where your project is located. Is it within a mile or directly upstream of an underserved community that we've identified in our watershed? If not, could it be placed there? And so then we also have questions. So something like this, is it reasonable to believe that the underserved communities would have at least equal access to the project's benefits as other communities? So it's getting you to start thinking about this, concept of distributive equity, right? So is there something that would make underserved communities less likely to benefit from that project? And then other questions, could this project actually help mitigate an environmental burden that we know is there in the community? does the project benefits align with the reported values, needs, or priorities of the community? So are you giving them something that they actually want or that they've requested? And so this is just currently a draft form that we're still working on. But all that's to say is that, particularly here at the Estuary program, we have a lot of interest in further exploring issues of equity and environmental justice, testing out different tools, ways for us to make it easier as decision makers to design and implement more equitable projects. So if anybody is interested in further exploring those or working with us more on these different topics here in the region, definitely reach out to us. So next, what I may just do to sort of make sure that we get to all of the sort of key topics that people want to discuss is I'll open it up to all of you to sort of sing out if there is a particular project that you're working on or a particular interest that you have from one of these other topics. And I want to make sure that we hear you and that you're able to sort of get what you're looking for out of this experience. Please go ahead, speak up, or vote for a topic that you'd like to discuss next. Anybody that feels particularly strongly about any of these?
I'll pipe in and maybe say education and communication, just the best way to get information out to people. I know with the Adapt Upon program, I've started up a newsletter, and that's kind of how we've been getting information out, but it doesn't get a whole lot of attention, I guess you would say. So the biggest thing we're looking for is ways to get the information out to as many people in the county as possible.
Yep. And is that a mail newsletter or an email?
It's on the county's Water Atlas website, as well as on Hillsborough County's main website under Adopt-A-Pond is how people can reach it currently. I've tried to get it on a social media post through communications, just haven't got a lot of good response back to that. Talked to a couple people in our communications department, but aren't having good luck with like a social media post. So back in the day, I do know it was mailed out, but I think as being part of an environmental program, I was trying to get away from sending out physical copies. We also have a place where people can submit their email address to have it emailed to them directly, but that's a very low list right now. It's only about 6 or 7 people, and some of them are not internal with Hillsborough County, but internal with other environmental organizations. So not the public, which is more what I would try to get information out to currently. So yeah, the communication side of things, mainly what I'm interested in.
Are you guys currently like tracking those, do you have different metrics that you're tracking? So like engagement rates, click rates, or like do you know like the percent of people that follow up, like so after they see the newsletter that they follow up or that they give you a call or something like that?
Yeah, so actually recently, just in a day or two, we had someone actually screenshot a section of the newsletter and email us with a question about their lake stormwater pond. And we have been able to use the Water Atlas website to get the number of clicks. But I think the number was so low from what I remembered that it was almost like it didn't really provide any accurate information. Plus, it couldn't distinguish if the clicks were the same person viewing it multiple times or if it was different people. So as of now, that information hasn't been very useful.
So I'm working on like basically the exact same program that you're doing in Pasco County, but it's brand new here. So I'm also kind of trying to navigate that right now about what the best way to reach people is, and you know, at what sort of benchmark is most effective in terms of like how to explain what we're trying to do, and what that means for you as an individual, if it's something you want to participate in. And then also, like down a similar vein, I guess, like we were just talking about metrics and engagement and things like that. Just other measurable tools or measuring tools for things like perception and behavior that are, you can keep track of, that aren't necessarily like I'm presenting this to you and this is like I want to hear from you. More things that can just sort of be tracked unbiasedly. I like surveys definitely have value, and we'll be using those a lot too, but also just other forms of behavior tracking that maybe isn't like people aren't so aware of, if that makes sense. And I feel like it kind of is in line with disseminating information as well, because that affects who you reach in the first place. So
This sort of plays off that. I know one challenge that I have that I've been trying to figure out, and my background is in conservation education and advocacy. So my default is to tell people what I think they should know, or to tell people what I think they should do, and then persuade them and sort of pressure is the wrong word, but encourage them to do that. So the tension with that, with some of this, is like with the questions we're developing within Manatee Awareness Coalition, is trying to figure out how to ask questions that get honest responses, that give us a clear sense of where people are, without, in the formation of the question itself, kind of biasing them in a certain direction. And like for me, like if we're going to spend time and money to reach out to people, let's do it to reach out to people, to educate them, persuade them, push them, whatever. But I understand that while that's okay, if you don't have good information or a good message that you've developed with tools like we're discussing, then it's not as effective. So I guess my question is the sort of resources to look at how to form the questions to get the best data, and in the process, not sort of bias your audience, even subconsciously, to be a little more conservation oriented than they might be otherwise.
Yeah,
I do kind of understand that. Sorry. I have been to a couple pond workshops. I think through IFAS they were, and it was interesting because I think those people being in a room full of professors with UF and people who work in the environmental field, you could definitely tell their responses, maybe like you're saying, weren't what they honestly believe or what they think we wanted to hear. That's just an interesting fact, yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult to sort of, really suss out exactly what it is that, people are meaning, and what they're thinking whenever they respond to those types of questions. Um, I will say, so we're working on a project that's funded by FDOT and the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council to look at different stormwater messages and materials out there. And so we included Adopt a Pond in the mix, and some of the feedback that we got from that about the adopt upon one was that people were quite confused by adopt upon, because when they saw it, they immediately thought of adopt a highway type of thing. And so I think if you're thinking about like communicating about Adopt a Pond, there may be this hurdle in the beginning where people might see the word adopt a pond and immediately think of adopt a highway, and how often they've seen adopt a highway and they just ignore it, or they don't understand what adopt a highway is either. So they feel like this is just another thing, but for a pond. So I wonder if there may be something there in terms of, reframing so that the first thing that they see isn't adopt a pond. Instead, it's something a bit more actionable or maybe a bit more connects with them emotionally and then sort of brings them into something that they care about or that they're interested in. And then they see adopt a pond is a vehicle to sort of, manifest um, that thing. But that's kind of some of the things that we've been seeing right now that could be helpful for thinking about that particular issue.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I do apologize. I did miss that meeting the other week. I had a family emergency, but it is good information to have for us. So I appreciate it.
No problem.
Sarah, I was just gonna add that you're not the only like county employee that's had a hard time gaining access to the social media channels that y'all maintain. And so historically, if there are messages that you want to get out there that are aligned with the comprehensive conservation and management plan, like how to maintain your stormwater pond, those are messages that we would be happy to share on our social media channels, and we can tag, your organization so it gets some of that leg and some of that reach, but without some of the red tape. And I'll caveat all of that with saying that I also think the social media landscape is changing really significantly, and I'm not sure that that's a profound way to reach the community either. But if you're looking to get in those spaces and you're not having success with your internal communications, keep an organization like ours in mind, because you are part of an interlocal agreement with us. So we are you, you are us, and we're happy to help share that content for you as well.
That's great. Thank you.
I think Rory just put something in the chat.
Survey writing, that it does take a lot of practice, and if you're able to hire someone who has that practice, that can really help. But if not, doing a couple rounds, getting people like your friends or family who aren't necessarily associated with what you're doing, to do a few take it and give you feedback and let them know what they thought the questions were asking. And you can do that either really kind of informally, just like send it out to some people through email.
More formally as like a focus group are both good ways to kind of like sort through and figure out what questions you're really asking before you make it big in public.
Thank you. I had one other question about that. I know this sounds like a small thing, but we spent a lot of time discussing this. So the one of the tools we're going to use to conduct these surveys is to go door to door in targeted communities based on their proximity to the water, and ask people a series of questions to get information. And so we were talking about how if we're going to do that, which I think is a worthwhile technique, then there's a number of people whose door we will come to who won't be home. So should we leave something there for them, something with a web link or something, whatever, so they could essentially take the same survey online that we were doing in person. But then the interesting discussion we had was, okay, so if we just leave something there that doesn't really explain who we are and why we're doing it, it's a little weird. Like I would come home to my door and there'd be this paper, like go to this web link. And I'm like, okay. But we were trying to figure out how we do that in a way, again, that doesn't sort of, if it's something that says, the Tampa Bay Estuary Program and Save the Manatee Club are conducting the survey and then again, it sort of influences their response. So we had an interesting discussion about how whatever we leave has got to be something that is inviting enough and makes sense for them to want to participate in, but again, doesn't sort of, indicate overtly that there's a certain response that might be not our preferred response, but they would subconsciously think, oh, if it's, say, the Manatee Club, I don't want to sound like a horrible person, so I'll say, yes, I do all these things, or yes, I support you. So I don't know that we had any sort of conclusion on that, other than we had to make sure whatever, if we went to the time and effort of printing something and leaving something, we wanted it to be effective in soliciting responses. So. Oh, okay. So I'm going to say one more thing before I forget. We had a long conversation about this, and we are going to talk to groups that do a lot of door-to-door outreach to get some best practices and to get some ideas. Conservation groups like Environment Florida, or the political parties that go out and do voter education. But if anybody has suggestions or ideas or experiences with doing some sort of social science work where you were going door to door to solicit responses from people in terms of like best practices or whatever, I would love to hear that or share that, because we have 2 people in the group who have done it extensively, but not for a long time. So it's a whole different world in many ways, and so we were just thinking about if we had access to some information or some best practices from groups currently doing that sort of thing, it'd be very helpful. So,
Joe, I'd offer, in addition to like groups that are performing advocacy with their canvassing efforts, to look at like the different community storm drain marking programs, which often incorporate exactly what you're talking about, a canvassing element that includes like a leave behind. So sometimes they will knock on a door and have a conversation with the homeowner, or they will give the leave behind and it'll have some kind of call to action. So I know some of the Keep America Beautiful affiliates do those programs. I know Tampa Bay Watch has done that, and I believe like most of the county programs have that as well. I don't know, Christine, if Anna Marie used to run that, and I think she's maybe like a step up now, but I would maybe recommend Pinellas County as a place to reach out to for sort of like less advocacy, but sort of,
right,
you know what I'm
right.
saying? Yeah.
Okay, no, that's great. I appreciate that very much. That's perfect.
We, as a county, we did, we still do actually storm drain marking in unincorporated areas. And I was a part of that. And we did leave like educational material, like door hangers that notified residents why we marked their storm drain and the importance of our messaging, which was only rain down the drain.
Did you when you and I can ask you this offline, so I'll save the whole group this, but I'll be curious about like experiences that you had or things that worked well, or like I know just from when I used to canvass and go door to door on conservation oriented stuff, we have policies like you don't want people out there after dark, you're not going to people's houses, like you don't argue with people. I mean, and this is a little bit different because again, it's much more you're taking a survey, you're not engaging in some sort of debate. But again, we just want to make sure that people are safe and it's effective. So Christine, I'll email you and see if you had any thoughts or ideas, and I appreciate that very much.
Sure, that'd be great.
With door to door, it's not a bad idea to reach out to the neighborhood association ahead of time and maybe even like start to build a little bit of a relationship and maybe even attend a meeting where the neighborhood association leaders can introduce you and y'all can like give a 1-minute summary of what you're doing, and like have that prepared so you're not biasing things ahead of time. And then just be like, look for our faces, like we'll be around the neighborhood, we'll be knocking on your door. That way people just like sort of have some warning and they might be more inclined to talk to you if you've kind of been vetted and introduced by people they trust.
Okay, that's a really good idea as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Great. Well, we are coming towards the end of the hour. So I did just want to share. So most of this next section for kind of reflection was going to be, if we had a lot of people and we were all in different breakout rooms, we could kind of come back together to sort of share stuff that was happening. So I think, you know, most of us are familiar with some of the things that we've discussed and you know, potential opportunities that might be here. But just wanted to also open up the floor kind of one last time for folks. You know, if you're still really looking for something out of this meeting, or while we have, you know, a bunch of different people in the room, if there's an opportunity you'd like to share or a specific need that you have or a request from folks, you know, feel free to take the time now to share or just put it out into the world, share your contact information, what have you. If anybody still has lingering thoughts or requests, please feel free to speak out. Speak out. I was curious, Eric, I think Eric's still on the call. I remember you saying that you had a lot of projects coming up, you know, explicitly looking into you know, people's experiences, attitudes, perceptions, and those sorts of things. Do you have any specific needs that are on the horizon that you need, you know, would like assistance with, or would like for us to sort of promote or help, you know, achieve those needs?
Um, our needs are basically finding the right partner, which we're doing internally with our, like, the contractors we have access to, picking one that has a specialty in social science. We kind of realized, you know, in the consulting world, you get a lot of these national consulting firms that say they can do everything. But we've had issues where we've done surveys in the past where we couldn't use the results because then they were, during the scientific review process, they realized, you know, because the questions were worded a certain way, they would lead them to an answer. Or, you know, we had kind of biological scientists kind of developing the social science survey portion. Um, and so what we're doing now is working with contractors to develop the surveys so that they're accurate and defensible and usable. I think as far as needs, we're looking for anyone else in the Gulf region that's kind of doing fishery surveys work. We're pretty familiar with the states and the surveys they do regularly. But anyone else who's done targeted research on anglers, fishing habits, type of bait, that sort of thing, in addition to attitudes, you know, if they view sea turtles or marine mammals negatively, positively, if, you know, that sort of thing. So it's kind of nebulous. I don't really have a specific ask at this point. Really, just you never know what's going to come out of these things. And I might have found someone who's doing that exact survey work at Piers in the Gulf, and we could tag team. You know, we're using contractors when we can, but we're trying to find partners. So it looks like we might be able to team up with a university in the Northern Gulf to do one state. We're doing surveys in all 5 Gulf states, but we might find a partner who has a grad student that's focusing on social interactions. So, for instance, I think we have the University of New Orleans that's going to handle maybe Louisiana or Mississippi, one state, and actually deliver the surveys once they're developed. So, you know, if we could find ways to save money by using existing resources or existing partners who are doing work, maybe they're already out at the pier and they could just give this survey while they're there instead of paying a contractor to travel and stay overnight and waste thousands of dollars. So, anyone who's doing work in that field in the Gulf of Mexico, there might just be some overlap or some synergies we can take advantage of. Or if we're doing surveys, if we can help someone else, if they have a need, ask a few questions to add our survey or something like that, just to make sure everyone knows what we're doing and see if there's any overlap. That's all.
Great. I will say that the community survey, it doesn't have really detailed questions, but um, some additional questions that it has that I didn't go into today is, so we do ask folks if about their fishing practices, so we've got estimates about the percentage of the population that does fish, and for those that say that they do go fishing, we asked them where they typically fish from, so either a shoreline of a water body, a pier or boardwalk, or from some sort of vessel, a canoe or a boat or something like that. And then we also ask them what their main reasons for fishing are. And so that can just be for like fun or for sport, for relaxation, for food for themselves to eat, for food to sell. And I think there may have been another, and socializing, I think was another one. So those are kind of just general ones, but we will have those every 2 years. So if that's helpful as some kind of indicator or something to track over time for you, through a sample of the public, that will be available. We also do have, on the opposite end, very niche, very specific survey data from anglers that we interviewed on the South Skyway fishing pier, and explicitly were asking them about their perceptions of pelican entanglements, seabird entanglements, their perceptions of gear restrictions that were just implemented by FWC a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago now, as well as some of their opinions on different solutions that they think could be good for solving the pelican entanglement problem. So that is actually getting ready to be published soon in a journal. So we can also make that available if that sort of niche topic is also of relevance, to the angler stuff.
Yeah, I could definitely be interested in the survey language, the actual questions that were used for that South Skyway survey. That we might be interested in that. As far as the other stuff, it could be useful for general knowledge, but we're analyzing existing data on sea turtle and marine mammal interactions. And so we're finding like, here's the piers where their most interactions happened, and we're targeting the surveys at those locations. So there's probably one or two in each state. So the chances of the Tampa Bay survey happening at a pier that we've identified as a hotspot for interactions is possible, but low. But great to know it's out there. I'll look into it when it's released. And like I said, I might reach out for the actual survey language before then, if you could share that.
Yep, definitely.
Great, thanks.
Anybody else, any final thoughts, requests, opportunities before we go?
Eric, I don't know if you're familiar with GOMA, and I'm so sorry if you are. I don't mean to give you information you already know, but we've worked with GOMA last year with our oyster shell recycling program, and they paid interns for us through a NOAA grant. So maybe you could tap them to see. It was part of a diversity, equity, and inclusion internship opportunity, but that might be a good way to have students perform the surveys for you all along those Gulf Coast states.
Okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with GOMA, but not every single connection NOAA has or project we've done with them. So that's a good piece of information I can follow up on. Thank you.
All right. Well, if there are no other final thoughts or things to share, just wanted to thank everyone again for coming today. Hopefully, you made some good connections, got some emails of folks. Even if you didn't share any of your thoughts or ideas, hopefully, you've heard from folks that you think might be important connections for things that you'd like to do in the future, and you can have their email, and you can have conversations offline. So thanks again for coming today and for participating. This is the first time we've ever done this kind of a virtual networking event. It is a shame that the winter storm, I think, prevented a lot of people from joining today. But so hopefully they'll just get bigger and better in the future. But so we would like to do more of these. And so we'd really like to know, from this first go around, if you could take this little feedback survey. I've got the QR code there. There's also a link that I've put in the chat. It should take you just less than a minute to fill out, but let us know what you thought about this, aspects of it that you like, things that you think could be added to improve them in the future. That would be really helpful for us to think about, how we can continue to diversify the types of meetings that we have amongst all of our committees to try to, keep people interested, engaged, opening up these spaces for collaboration and knowledge sharing, idea co-creation, problem solving, those sorts of things. So with that, thank you everyone for joining today. Please feel free to email me if you have anything of interest that we talked about today, you'd like help with something, or just to discuss more opportunities for potential collaboration. And thank you all very much. Enjoy this cold day if you're farther up north. I don't enjoy snow, but apparently people do. So hopefully you can go out and enjoy it if you enjoy snow. So thanks everyone for coming.
Thanks, Blake.